are still listening to Blind Shovel, an arts and music podcast. Forgive me, for it has been about 1 year since the last episode I released. Turns out fostering and creating human life was a bigger priority than working on this podcast. But in this episode, I once again interview Brad Hock about his wonderful publication, How to Bake a Breadling, which came out via Hollow Press, a great publisher. Fascinating conversation as usual with Brad. Highly recommend you check out this book and take a listen. Thank you.
Can you hear
Brad,
me? Yeah,
congrats on the book.
thank you. Appreciate
And
that.
congrats on, I was shocked pleasantly to see that you're selling breadlings at pretty decent prices.
Yeah, I was stoked that they wanted them. I was expecting them to kind of like use some of the pieces, but then I told them what I had, and they were like, "Yes, send everything." So I was like, "Oh, cool." It was a nice bonus to like everything else, and kind of yeah, definitely worth sending them over there for sure.
Over there to Italy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I should preface this by saying I'm being paid an enormous amount of money by Hollow Press to do this, so what follows will be a very biased review of the book.
they're 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 uh they're really greasing the gears over there.
Of course. Of course.
Well, it's good
I'm
to
I'm
know.
kidding. I'm kidding. I
Well, yeah,
got
I
I
mean,
got I got PDF access. That's what I got.
I thought about trying to like express mail one of the books, but I honestly don't have that many copies to work with, so I was like, maybe that's not a great idea. But they were
No,
totally cool with me sending the PDF, so that was good.
of course. One thing that immediately jumped out to me while reading it was, I mean, it's a very boring question, but where did this all start? Where did this type of format start? Because it seems really unique and flexible. Like as an artist, I saw it and I was like, oh, this feels versatile enough where it could actually be fun to make, as opposed to, we had talked about Old Boys Apples as that's like it was a struggle and challenging and it was arduous. This feels more just enjoyable from my side. I can imagine as an artist it was enjoyable too. There's my wife. My wife is vacuuming. So one moment. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah, that's totally something I tried to keep alive while working on it, was just remembering not to try to contain it too much or to structure it in any certain way and really let it come out the way that it wants to come out. And I think in doing that, it was able to keep it loose and fun for me in sections that I hadn't finished up to near like towards the end. So it was kind of nice not to have this like rigid format to have to follow and to yeah, kind of take it in different inspirations from a mixture of sources like old cookbooks and archaeology books, and a big inspiration was like college readers, uh, the kind of like the ones that come with a class and that are made usually by the professor and have like their handwriting in it and stuff like that. So I guess like
Where did it start? Since there's so many different modalities in terms of like little drawings, photographs. Is this all related? I haven't watched Old Boys Apples in a while, but does he technically bake a breadling in that?
um I mean, in a sense, you could say there is a lot of crossover with like the ritualistic aspects of the art that are similarly related to things I do to kind of allow concepts to breathe and not be so controlled by my interpretation of them, but more so just how they're choosing to come to me naturally.
Hmm.
And I think there's some crossover there, but it definitely was there. It's the crossover is intentional, but it's not directly um, the same principles, I guess you could say. But in a way, it is. still related to this kind of ideas of communicating with other forms of consciousness, or like yeah, just consciousness that's different than human consciousness but might mirror it in some other way.
But very literally, does he make breadling or does he make some kind of weird? What does he make in the cauldron in Old Boy's apples? I'm trying to remember.
So he like puts the old apple in there, and
Ah,
then
yes.
that
Okay.
grows, and it creates the little like baby mushroom character. So
Right.
it's different in that sense, that it's like working with different elements. It's working with like earth and apples and things like that, whereas the breadling's working more with yeast, um, and dough and water and salt and all that. Those kind of it's more of like an elemental difference. So there's a lot of similarities in this aspect of like the creation ritual and death and rebirth and those kind of things embedded into it. But
Hmm.
I would say this version steers off into a slightly different direction that probably has more to do with like where it came from in a sense of the original short story that it was based off of. But that's very different than what it ended up being.
So the seed is a short story.
Yeah, originally it was so you'll see at the front of the book it says for Twig, which is my
Yeah, I
pet
was going to
rat.
ask you about that. Oh, rabbit. Okay.
A rat. It
Rat?
was he was a pet rat I had when I was living in Oakland that passed away, and the day that that rat passed away, I wrote the short story, which at the time was How to Bake a Bread Boy. But that was kind of more so just about this. It was more a contemporary story about somebody who finds a book like this that teaches you how to bake a breadling and what happens to this guy who bakes one. Um, and this kind of over the years of working with this concept eventually transformed into I'm just gonna like make that actual document, the book itself, as opposed to the story surrounding the book.
I see. That does make sense.
And
And
then,
when what was the timeline of all that? How long are we talking?
I want to say in like 20, it might have been like 2019, 2020, around there, when I wrote it. And yeah, it like changed so many forms because originally I was trying to do a stop motion thing with it and was kind of reworking it and working with new concepts that ended up being like a prequel to that original story that were about the island and the whole universe that's contained within this book. And I had developed that for so long that I kind of was like, oh, when this opportunity to make this book came along, I was like pitching them concepts and knew that this one was pretty ready to go because it had so much work already embedded into it.
So were you approached to make a book before this took that actual form?
Yeah, yeah. The Hollow Press like approached me shortly after I moved to Portland. It was really unexpected for me because I had recently just kind of decided that I wanted to make books, and lo and behold, this crazy opportunity comes out of nowhere. And so I was like, "Oh, cool! I'm gonna like pitch them some concepts I have." And as far as what they were doing with these kind of game books, which are like related to game concepts and lore books, I felt like this Breadling concept had a lot of that embedded into it and could easily become something in that realm. But I also wanted to make something that was like nothing I've ever read before. Like I wanted to try to make something that was just like, okay, this feels like nothing I've experienced, and it will be fun to try to make something that I have no point of reference for making.
Right.
Or I guess there's points of reference, but no like solidified merging of these concepts in that way.
And so
So
how
that
long
was
had you worked on it? Like this form of the book, how long did it take?
it was I want to say about 7 or 8 months straight. And it was originally supposed to be 6 months, but we had some confusion communicating back and forth with dates and things like that. And I thought that I had they had postponed the deadline and was like working on the writing more, and then I found out, oh, they had not postponed the deadline, and it was a miscommunication. So I had to kind of tidy things up at that point and like really put it together. So it was an interesting process as far as that goes. But honestly, I'm happy that it happened that way because I easily could have spent another year working on this book, um, and never have stopped. You know, it's like one of those things you could just continually keep building on if you want to.
Yeah, that's what interests me is it's such a, like I was saying, there's kind of projects you can, I don't know how to word it, back yourself into a corner in, and you're stuck with them for years, and they're really restrictive in terms of expression, I guess. And this feels like the opposite. That if you want to photograph or literally bake a breadling that day or draw it, draw it in a iconographic style or more rendered or anything. It feels like you could do anything here. If you wanted to animate off of this, if you wanted to write within it, it feels really intimate for both parties, I think.
Well, that's awesome. I'm happy it feels that way because it's like, I mean, it sounds strange, but I feel like I've been living in the breadling world for so long that to me now I feel like I'm walled in by bread and I'm just getting to open the bread door out and share it with other people, which is great.
Of
Uh,
course.
but yeah, it's nice to hear that the concept feels kind of inviting and open ended. And that part of the whole reason I wanted to make this too was for the excitement of being like, oh, cool, maybe other people will actually read this book. And even though it's really seemingly difficult to bake one if you read past all the jargon and follow like the monk mods. It's kind of just a simple folk dough recipe that you can use to make bread sculpture. And I'm hoping that people will make them because I imagine people are going to make stuff that's like way cooler than what I could have anticipated, and that's always a fun
Well,
process
but it
to
is
watch.
dangerous.
It is dangerous, yeah, that's true. Your soul's like probably going to be scarred forever, but it's worth it in a way, as all art is. But
Oh, I didn't know that was a joke.
oh, it's I guess I more so mean like you know what I mean. The torturous situation we've gotten ourselves into as creatives in this world.
Oh, yes. Is baking a breadling dangerous though?
Oh,
Like, would you allow your child to do it?
under supervision, I would say so. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
it's like you can do this as simple as like it's kind of like an old technique that's used for making Christmas ornaments, and I've added all this kind of similar stuff I do when I'm writing stories or coming up with sculptures or concepts where it's more about like treating the subject matter as if it's an individual rather than treating it as it's something that you're supposed to control.
Hmm.
But being more of like a guide or a steward of this piece rather than being the author of it. That's kind of how I see the concept I'm trying to promote with the baking of it. So it adds a lot of layers of like interpersonalization work with the material to deepen your sense of value with the sculpture you're making because you're really thinking about it, and embedding all these kind of memories and concepts into it while you're making it that are supposed to incorporate its special consciousness. But I mean, to the wrong person though, it definitely could be dangerous as far as like it might just get inside your head a little bit.
Did you experience any of that?
I think I do with almost every project where I have these moments that are, yeah, a little spooky, where you're just like, oh, like, you think you know what you're doing and what's happening, and then you start putting things together and you realize there's all these little connections that are happening that you didn't really plan on, but they're there and they're stronger than the connections that you were already aware of. And that to me is always interesting because I'm like, well, what am I have a hard time knowing what I'm really saying because I didn't intend on saying that kind of thing. And it's interesting and beautiful at the same time and scary. And I kind of like that though. There's something fun about not having to take full responsibility for putting something out there and more so just like letting it happen and letting the work stand on its own and see what happens with that.
And would it be accurate to say that the last big project was Old Boys Apples?
Uh, there's been big projects in between, but none of them have fully like manifested as anything. Like I was writing a novella project for a long time, and that's something I still have in the back burner that could end up manifesting as something else someday. But and there's like been a lot of smaller stop motion projects and
Hmm.
sculpture projects and things like that. But as far as like getting to fully carry out a production in a way that feels comfortable and good, this is definitely the predecessor to Old Boys Apples.
And when you feel that, like when you feel success, it sounds like you feel that this book was successful, and I think you feel that way about Old Boys Apples as well. Is your impulse to try to do another in the same medium, or do you really just step back and let that next idea flow naturally? Like, do you feel a cringe or hesitation about the idea of making another book like this?
Um, it's really interesting you mentioned that because for a long time I had a lot of trouble stepping away with the idea that like stop motion was not the way that these projects were surfacing any longer. And I think it was from me taking stuff from Old Boys Apples, like exactly what you're talking about, and trying to reinterpret that success and formula with other things. And the process after that has just been like kind of realizing the failure that comes from taking the clothes from another project and trying to put them on something new and realizing like, okay, I need to stop looking at myself as a certain type of artist or someone that does a certain type of thing and start more so seeing myself as someone that's trying to communicate this concept and do
Mhm.
whatever that is best for the concept or whatever the world happens to present to me that gives me a chance to realize that form.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting tension because, from a brand perspective, the consumer loves to think of someone as repetitive. So, guy who animates that way and has done it for 10 years, I'm willing to hire you because I know you're going to do that thing. So, you're kind of paid to be predictable or pinned down, not always in a negative sense, but they're trying to mitigate risk if they're throwing money at you. So, they're like, oh, I can see that you just keep doing this. You must be good at it, and let's do that. But then I at least I relate to you in the sense of like ideas will come in certain forms, and perhaps I don't have the skill set to awkwardly fit it into those clothes in a way that's appealing, as
Mm,
you're saying, the clothing metaphor. I think there's a tension there. I think some artists don't have this problem, but if you're more free form in that flow, that interpretation, uh, I think that tension is something you just have to live with for the rest of your career. And fortunately, I think you make good enough work where obviously you were approached to make a book without any substantial book work before, correct?
yeah, which was very surprising to me that they were willing to trust me. And I mean, really,
That's
they were
beautiful.
very hands off with the whole project. And that was just such a relief because my biggest worry always is working with someone who's initiating that is like, what are they going to want on their end? And they didn't really want much other than like helping to design the cover and the way the actual printing went and the book format and stuff like that. But yeah, it was really nice to kind of deal with that in that sense. But yeah, there's a huge sense of like, oh, I'm a kind of aware that I'm not creating a signature and that I'm likely the next project I work on is going to be something that looks completely different than Old Boys Apples and completely different than the Breadling, and likely it will be in a completely different time frame and setting. And uh, my hope is that I can keep making work that's honest enough on my end that people are sensing that level in which I'm trying to present what I'm doing, and they'll just trust me that, oh, this next thing he's going to come out with is different, but it's always different, and it's always good.
Mm-mm-mm.
I mean, that's a dream, obviously, for every artist to want that kind of trust, but it's like uh, I would ideally. I think the book right now is a form that I've found a lot of flexibility with, especially with this publisher, and it allows me to do a lot of the things I like to do with film, but in a more expanded context and narrative sense. That's really nice. And yeah, so I think books will end up being something I'm interested in for a while, as long as I can keep expanding and like making that fun and interesting to work with as a medium.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I should say that there's a very clear connection between this and Old Boys Apples. Like you could definitely feel that the same human made them. And I think that's important. You know, so I suppose that's what you mean by being honest. If if ultimately it's honest, they'll probably know it's you.
Yeah, and that's always the part, that's the stain of whatever I touch is always going to be on there. There's always going to be some aspect of me working with the material that I think, as much as I could be like, oh, I'm breaking away from whatever I do and trying this new thing. Anybody who looks at it will be able to see what I'm doing still exists in it in some form. I think just maybe the colors and the medium presentation may change from time to time, and that's honestly just a way of me being like, I don't want to just keep giving people the same thing over and over again. And I also want to just keep exploring with new textures and mediums and seeing what happens with those, and how they relate to the actual story material, which, if that ends up being very different, it's going to end up having to go in a different direction that supports that.
Do
But
you have any sense of what the next? This sounds like kind of counterintuitive to ask a question of this nature, but it's possible you already have the seed of the next thing. Do you have a sense of where the next big project might develop medium wise, or is that are you currently just lost in the positive sense?
I have something that's emerging right now that I'm writing. I'm still at the point where whenever I write something, usually at the beginning, it always comes out in like this first person narrative format. And there's a lot of that in the Breadling, but in general, with other stories, I end up changing the format or doing different things just because I realize that's kind of the easiest way for me to get things out, is writing it from that perspective. And later on, I'll usually be like, oh, some of this can doesn't have to strictly abide by this perspective, or could be told better from more of an omni perspective or a third person perspective. So kind of just like right now, I'm at the point where I'm just writing an experience more or less of this different world that I'm slowly starting to explore, and um, that's leading me down to doing like new hobbies and research related to this character, so I have a better understanding of like what I'm dealing with. And so yeah, it's like I didn't expect it to hop back on this quickly, because the last time after Old Boys Apples, it took much longer for something new to come along. But this thing was like, I feel like it's just been waiting in the background almost the entire time.
Well, I think that that can speak to the nature of the prior project. It kind of sounds like when, if people have like a really awful, no, I'll put it this way, awful experience with a child, like a
Mm.
difficult child, they'll wait like, I don't know, 3 to 5 years before they have their next one. But if they have like a good positive one, they'll just be right back in the sack. And I feel that way about certain projects too. And maybe the breadlings, maybe there's some breadlings that are easier to deal with or not. But it speaks to the nature of certain mediums that like they're more quickly regenerative. Um, where I could imagine an animation that stop motion could be more exhaustive, and you might be drained of energy for a couple years. Something again about this format that has a synergy. And books, I love books, so like I feel like they often have this power. They just there's just this infinite quality to them. At least how I read them and view them. There are worlds that are. I mean, I know animation can be that, but there's something distinct and powerful about books. I don't know if that's not very elegantly put, but you know,
Oh,
it doesn't surprise me to hear that you've got that energy quickly back because this feels like a thing that if I made it, I would feel that energy too. I would feel, oh, let's keep going.
no, I mean, it definitely feels that way where I feel like I'm kind of stumbling into something where it definitely clicks and works better with the way my creative process goes as opposed to stop motion. As much as I love getting into animation, it's just like you're incredibly limited unless you have infinite funding with like how much story you can actually tell in that medium. And this has just allowed me to expand and do different things. And like you're saying with the book as a medium, I'm also just I love to read, and I love authors especially that toy with the format of the expected narrative of like what a novel's supposed to be or what a you know a poetry book's supposed to be. I'm a huge fan of like Richard Brautigan or William Carlos Williams, and both of those are kind of people that to me make the medium of the book very exciting because they kind of just took it and did whatever they wanted to do with it and showed people that that was possible. And to me, that's just like it feels great moving in that direction and being like, okay, I'm excited to make something that's totally different and uh, also just learned a lot from making this one that I'm like, okay, cool. This is how I'm going to handle this differently to make it a little bit more interesting or I guess more like refined is a better way to put it.
Yeah. Interesting you mentioned William Carlos Williams. Yeah, he's
Oh,
great.
yeah, he's I've been getting really into him lately and just I started off reading his poetry books and then I started reading the Patterson book and that one is just like this amazing epic poem that reads in so many different ways and that's just been a huge inspiration to me lately of going over that and yeah, just seeing like this master move between concepts effortlessly and weave them all together in this way that is really alien and familiar at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, you live out over by there, so you know.
Well, and the art center I run is named after him. So,
Oh, wow,
I'm
I had no idea.
oh, he's born in the house like a block away from where I'm at right now, and he died in this. He lived and died in this town his whole life.
Oh, that's
He,
amazing.
he was a physician, basically primarily. I love artists who are kind of primarily not artists, but
Oh,
manage to make a lot of work. There's something real grounding about that to me.
yeah, I think there's this kind of understanding of day-to-day life that those kind of artists have that it feels a little bit more down to earth than somebody who has the freedom to be like, "Oh, I'm just going to sit back and uh, have the freedom to make whatever I want." That can produce brilliant things as well, but to me there's something always kind of lovely about the, Kafkas of the world doing their accounting jobs during the day and writing their weird perspectives of reality at night.
Yeah, I think it usually yields better fruit. I mean, in essence, they have to be in the stream of life that everyone else is in, and that gives them a kind of power if they can manage to do both. Obviously, many artists are just crushed by that, but you know, get over it. Anyway, the
Yeah, it's part of the experience. I mean, I've always talked to people about part-time jobs. Like my resume for part-time jobs is unbelievably extensive. I've literally
no,
done
I recall you were security and or yeah, bodyguard in Chicago.
Oh, that was in Hollywood actually at the
Goon.
museum. Yeah, I was a doorman for a little bit.
Yeah. Um, actually, let's talk about you had moved, right? You
Yeah, yeah, I
moved. Was
moved.
it mid process of this book?
No, actually, the book started like I was here and working on sculptures and working on kind of the book that I'm now working on, like an earlier form of that idea that I've started picking up again, and was just kind of like, oh, I just moved. I don't have a lot of money. I'm gonna try to sell sculptures and try to make these books. I was considering like self-publishing them at the time and just being like, this is what I can do. I'm gonna do this, and then like after a few months of doing that, Hollow Press reached out and I was given the ability to pitch this book, and they picked it up, and I was like, oh god, this is amazing. So it's been it's basically just been doing that since I've been here.
When you moved where again?
Oh, Portland,
Portland.
Oregon, not Maine, but yeah, I live kind of on the northeast side. Um, Funny enough, in the Hollywood district, so I'm still in Hollywood. But
Wow.
yeah, but it's nice. I mean, it's totally different pace than LA. But there's a lot of beautiful greenery out here, and people are very relaxed and kind of in their own lanes, and it's kind of nice to just like be surrounded by a calmer energy for a little bit, or definitely while working on this. I don't know if I could have completed it in the time I had if I was living in LA, to be honest.
Right. And in
Um,
respect to the practicality of these things, I am always interested in just the things surrounding a project like this. You know, if I'm not mistaken, commodifying anything like Old Boys Apples is very difficult. Um, but a book is a different thing. I mean, it's you're probably not making tons of money off it, but does it also feel a little more sustainable from that perspective to have a book that you could reprint if needed versus just making a film like a short film and having it out there like
Yeah, I mean, that was originally my concept of wanting to move into writing and making books to begin with, is just after pitching stop motion films for so long, you kind of realize like, oh, even if this does work out and you start funding something, you may not get the next chunk of funding. You may have to search for other forms of funding, which can lead you to all sorts of crazy places. And I just kind of wanted to find a way of being like, okay, I'm not going to be just dependent on pitching films and then living off of that money that the film is using to get made and then having to do that all over again after it's made. And just being like, this is a way I can produce similar worlds and imagery in a way that's more reasonable time wise. And also, I can actually make something off of it. Even if it's like you're saying, it's not a luxurious life by any means. It's like, similar to being a teacher, you're kind of like doing something that's a little bit less respected in society and a monetary value, but really respected in a more so thought value or artistic value, I guess you could say.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you make something, and it ideally this book does well. I have a feeling people are going to respond to it. The world will do what it's going to do, but hopefully there's another edition, and then I get to do another book, and then it's something that's like, oh, cool, this can help me sell sculptures. This can help me just have some form of reoccurring income. It's like you know how it is with art. It's project to project.
Well, that's why I was like I said pleasantly surprised to look at the site and be like, "Oh wow, these breadlings are selling and honestly they're selling at some solid prices." And that's very cool to see.
Yeah, my hope is too is that like the more the book gets around, because I mean like I'm still relatively obscure, and the book is as well. So my hope is that more people find it and talk about it, and then people will want to seek out those items, and then ideally with the next project, my plan is to incorporate that element of it much more into it, where each image is going to be much more of a standalone sculpture that is kind of intended to be a piece that will stand on its own.
Hmm.
Um, which I think will be kind of fun as a challenge. You know, I'm sure I'll break from that mold. I say that now, and I know like after doing three of them, I'm gonna be like, now, uh, but you know, like just I would love the idea of like there being really, you know, there's a lot of beautiful pieces with this book, but it would be nicer if they were less like pieces of pages and pieces that are, you know, fully contained within themselves. Which I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. It might be like diorama based or something like that, but uh, we'll see
And
how it
these sculptures are they're just they're dough,
goes. Thanks.
right?
Yeah, they're a mixture of dough, and then some of them are plasticine, or like mixtures of dough and plasticine. Um, but yeah, but for the most part, it's sculptural dough,
I
which
mean,
was
that's even more impressive, honestly, to sell just shortbread breadling.
what is nice about them is they're actually like made in a way so they're made of so much salt that they're
Hmm.
technically like archival, and I've coated them as well with like a kind
Really?
of shellac resin thing. So and they have like holes drilled in the back of them and everything. I did like a hanging things because I was like, oh, you know, these will work if they're hung on a wall somewhere. Whereas I felt like having them just standing somewhere felt a little unfinished to me. Um, so I'm like, you know, at least they'll last. But yeah, it's definitely like they're definitely made out of there's actual wheat in them.
Interesting. What was your relationship to bread before all this?
Oh boy.
Were you into bread? You like bread?
I mean,
You
a
b-
lot of it comes from Bardo Bread being the whole like company beginning, but I have always kind of loved the gingerbread man stories and Kolo Block, like it's the Russian version uh of a similar tale. Every country has their own version. There's even like that Ghibli short,
yeah. I was going to
The
mention
Egg
that actually.
Princess or Mr. Doe and the Egg Princess. Like I'm just a huge fan of little beings made of bread. That just the whole concept there is enough for me to be like, okay, I can toy with this for a while. But
How do you
a
feel
lot
about
of
that Miyazaki short? I got to talk about Miyazaki. It's just standard on the podcast.
oh yeah,
Every episode.
it's one of my favorite works of his, honestly, because it's just like such a beautiful. It's all the peak whimsical stuff that is featured in like any of his films, but that's all there is. Um, and I really love that about it. I wish it went on forever, but it's one of those things that it's so beautiful that you really know it couldn't. It could like only exist in this brief little window, and if you tried to take it any further, it would immediately just not have the same effect. Um, but
Yeah. I have some. I love it. There's the end is very bizarre to me, but boy, is the beginning amazing. It's fantastic.
yeah, the Baba Yaga and like the chicken hut and the bones, yeah, it's unbelievably beautiful. Also, just all those eggs.
Oh yeah.
um,
That was one
yeah,
note I made while reading this. I was just like, definitely this man has seen Mr. Doe and the Egg Princess.
totally. I mean, to me, it was kind of like a lot of the work I write about is often about human beings encountering other forms of consciousness that are like either nature related or technology related, sociologically created, you know, just various forms of personas that can take place from collective thought or things like that. And to me, there's something fascinating about those bread myths, and that like dough has this resemblance to flesh, and when you cook it, it rises and falls, and it has this kind of organic breathing quality to it, and quite literally is alive with the yeast inside of it. And you know, you can get ergot poisoning from it, and it will cause you to have hallucinations. And it's just kind of like this idea of like there's so much about fungus and yeast and those kinds of organisms and the way they think and the way they operate that we just it's so alien to us. but at the same time, I feel like it's starting to emerge in our culture and our world at a time where we're starting to think about the consciousness that surrounds us and how our way of viewing the world historically has just been pretty wrong as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think we got into that last time. Fungal networks.
Yeah, I mean, if it's unfortunate, but it's something I probably will ramble about at any given moment. Somebody talks to me long enough. It's
Fungal
like
networks. That's your
yeah,
thing.
I'll just start going off about fungus and like different forms of consciousness, and yeah, it's a like obsession. But
Fair enough.
yeah, I don't know. But yeah, for me, it's like that. I like the idea of like stories where human beings create something else also that has like a human or human like consciousness that kind of turns around and looks at them
Hmm.
and allows people to realize like, oh, wait a minute, other forms of consciousness might view us differently than we view ourselves, or see the things we're doing completely differently than we see them. And I really like the idea of people opening up to those kinds of ideas and seeing things in a more broad perspective. I mean, a lot of people already do. It's not that original. It's just more so something I think, I don't know. It makes the world more magical.
Hmm. Were these breadlings baked in your home?
Yeah, they were they were baked in this oven here, which we have this cool like retro electric oven that is actually featured in the book. That
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
it's this General Electric. I don't know what the model is, but it's a beautiful machine. Kind of almost
So,
like looks like it's from the 50s or something.
and these breadlings would just be about the house. I'm kind of curious about.
Oh yeah, that was actually one of the nicest things about sending them off to Italy, and the fact that they wanted to like repurpose all of these as pieces and give them to people is because like oftentimes after a project like this, you just end up with so much storage, and your entire space is just filled with these things, and you end up either just like putting them away and then you don't see them, or you find a way to display them. And this is just like a really nice way to get it out of the space because they were literally everywhere.
I mean, some of them are adorable, so I'm sure you didn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, people loved it when they were visiting. My girlfriend had a lovely time talking with her friends about it. And they just, like, what are these things? You're like, well, these are breadlings. They live with us. But yeah, then shout out to her as well. She was I would say, the layout editor of this entire project, and has bookmaking experience from back in the day when she worked at Penguin, Maggie Olson. Um,
Well,
yeah, and so she was able to take InDesign and all of her experience with that, and like I could basically make the images and show her what I wanted it to look like in Photoshop, and then she could take that and reformat it and create it in that, which honestly, I couldn't imagine what this project would have been like if I had to learn InDesign at the same time as writing it and making all this. It would have been a lot less fun. So,
nice.
yeah, praise to her. She's also the baker
Accepted.
out of us as well. She's really more of the like, she legit bakes all the time. So it was nice to have someone around where I've done a lot of like minor bread baking and like sculptural dough baking because I've been working with this medium for a while, but she has her whole family bakes. So it was like I was able to kind of talk to them and ask them questions about the baking world and learn things that I wasn't privy to before that. So yeah, I mean, anybody who bakes will be able to read the book and actually see that there's like a lot of humor and story built off of things that can actually go wrong while you're baking.
Hmm.
Um,
Did you have any particular attachment to any of the breadlings?
yeah, there was. You know, it's funny too, because normally I never have attachment to the stuff I make.
Hmm.
I'm usually just like, oh, cool, like I make it and then it exists and I like it, but I'm like, I want someone else to have it. Um, but there were a few with this where I was just like, oh, it was tough to give them away because they were kind of like they were ones that I've had for years that I made a really long time ago, and it's kind of just like, oh, it's crazy that I'm not gonna have that thing anymore. Uh, but
Do you know their names offhand? I'm kind of curious based on the kind of.
oh, like the ones that are in like what their names are in the book or as they're like listed on the site.
Though I guess only the botched breadlings have names. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's none of the botched breadlings. Uh, those are yeah, those are all really fun to make, and those are all too based off of things that can go wrong with baking. And I tried to develop like different personalities of botched breadlings that could kind of suit those things that can go wrong. From like overproofing dough or underproofing dough or not adding enough salt, things like that. That are really fun. But the demonic breadlings are obviously the most fun.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean that tracks. They're the most seductive.
Yeah, they're the most mysterious. Like you don't really know about what their deal is, and like I don't know if you finished the story, but they uh they definitely they play a large role in kind of the whole mystery around like what's the real purpose of the Breadling book and what's the real purpose of the island, like what's actually going on here. Which I don't know if I could really even tell you myself.
I guess that I should have started there. If you were to describe this book to just a normal human, it's not just the instructions of how to bake a breadling. It's much more than that. So how would you explain that to my parents?
Well, it'd be tough for your parents because they probably didn't grow up playing video games, but the way I
No.
pitched it was like this is like a book you would find in a video game that leads you on a side quest that you need to complete in like order to make something, and like it's not just like following the steps of the quest, you're also getting the like story of the person that had the book on them or potentially the person that made the book that they're holding on to. And so there's
Hmm.
kind of it's kind of like you're picking up something that was handed from person to person and slowly turned into something and tells a story of the people that have come into contact with it as well as the instructions that it entails. But for an older audience, I guess the best way I describe it is I usually say it's like a folk horror occult baking book,
Hmm.
which is just a mouthful.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah. So,
I mean, that's got me just again, the expansiveness of the book has me just spinning off. Like, if you open a bakery in Portland that was actually edible breadlings, that would be fun. If
that's
if
actually
some
a concept Maggie and I are playing with.
That'd be great.
We want to start off as like just doing like a cart, that we have
Hmm.
like some edible breadlings that people can just buy, and we've been working on like different kinds of cookies and things like that that we can make them out of or shortbread, and then have like sculptures and like different things that we make also available there, possibly like used books, and try to do like a little like stand at first and see how well that vibes with people, and then if that does well, I mean, ideally, we kind of like the stand thing. We like the roving
Yeah,
caravan
I like that.
style of, like if we could just get like a donkey and a cart eventually, that would be ideal.
Mm. What's a donkey cost?
Sorry, what?
What does a donkey cost?
My
Let me
guess would be
see.
like at least 6 or 7 grand, but I could be
That
totally off.
I mean, these days a used car.
I think the most difficult part is it's not the acquisition price. I mean, I'm sure there's varying range. of like, quality of donkey. So you might be able to get like a really nice donkey from someone for a lot more than somebody who's just happens to have a donkey they want to get rid of. But
I'm reading 500 to 3,000.
wow, so that's cheaper than I thought. But
That'd be
the main
amazing.
cost is just storing them and
Of
like
course.
having the ethical treatment of the animal and all that, which most places like make you have it at a place that takes care of them, um, which is cool. Funny enough, in Portland, on all the sidewalks, like in this neighborhood, there's little rings on them for where people used to tie their horses up.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and there's like people who make these metal like horse sculptures that they'll tie up to them, and then they like each neighborhood like paints them and does their own metal horse, which is pretty cool. I like it.
I mean, a video game flows naturally out of this. A zine of breadlings other people baked. It's really that's the beauty of it. I like these worlds, and that's what's exciting to me about this. As much as I love Old Boys Apples, it kind of is what it needs to be within that. It's kind of open and shut. That's it.
Yeah.
Um, this is like, yeah, I think that's what's interesting to me about it is like as the reader or the consumer, there's so much to participate in imaginatively. Um,
And that was kind of like my whole thing as I saw this emerging genre of the game book, and like my first exposure to it was with Plastiboo, who I believe was the artist who showed my work to one of their editors, the Old Boys Apples, and that's I think how I ended up getting this calls because they enjoyed that film so much. Um, Not a call.
Plastiboo.
Yeah, Plastiboo. He made Vermis, and it's kind of this like it feels like a medieval dungeon game that exists on PS4, but it's designed as if it were from a Super Nintendo like game art book from the old days.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's cool.
It's beautiful, and I kind of saw what these people were doing with this medium, and I noticed this was really picking up, and I've seen a lot of people kind of going in this direction and the game book being a thing. And I tried when this came around, I was like, okay, game book is like a really open concept. You can do so many things with that. And so my whole thought was like have the game be something you're actually doing in reality. Actually have craft aspects of it embedded into it. And also just have it be an art book for people that don't want to do that and just, something to flip through and enjoy.
Hmm.
But the interactive part was really fun for me to think about because I've never written from that perspective before, and it was I don't know, it's something I at first was like having trouble with, and now that I'm more into accepting that quality of this medium, I'm getting more into it.
Are you a video game guy?
Oh yeah. Um I'm not like a up to date gamer because I don't play a lot of new games. I occasionally do, but I'm more so like really into retro games and retro aesthetics in that sense, and kind of trying to like play with those and um gain inspiration off of those kind of like unique feelings that you get from like Super Nintendo era games or PlayStation 1 or Dreamcast games. And um yeah, I mean, I originally, before I ever got into animation, I was going to junior college for game art
Really?
because that's what I thought I wanted to get into, and then I got into animation because I was like, oh, I really like just telling stories, and now I've wound up back in this kind of like game realm, which is it's actually really fun. I enjoy it a lot. It feels like there's a lot of potential to do a lot of things that I could do in other mediums with like poetry or with prose that I could incorporate into this medium in a really exciting way that just feels fun and fresh for me to work on, which is and all any artist could really ask for.
This is true. Yeah, Mason Lindroth comes to mind as well when I was reading it. Do you know his work?
What's his name?
Mason Lindroth. He did like this game Helix that's
Oh,
crazy beautiful. I think he was NJ based actually.
that sounds really familiar. I know the game, or
It's
the.
it, it's like claymation, I'm pretty sure, but turned into a video game. He seems to be quite mysterious, but if he ever hears this, it's absolutely beautiful work. It's the only like video game like if you made a video game, I feel like that's where you would be exploring it. It's kind of Dadaist and surreal, and there's a cute quality, but a horror factor. It just kind of does everything you need it to do, and it's just such a distinct style as well.
I
I
feel like
definitely
I'm
recommend checking
remembering.
them out.
Yeah, because when I made, I remember people telling me about it when I did Old Boys Apples, because they were like, "Oh, you have to see this game." Like, I mean, especially too with the kind of sculpture I do, that's more in the like ancient art realm, fused with like the claymation kind of stuff, and yeah, they do an amazing job of carrying off that like whatever their aesthetic is. I don't even know if there's like a word for it, but it's gorgeous. Um,
Yeah, I'd love to.
but
It also makes me with the book just think of like again, the world is so expansive that, and it seems like it took some. There was multiple people involved in the production, right? Outside of your girlfriend, I thought I saw a couple other names mentioned in there.
yeah, there was two graphic designers. I mostly worked with Marco on it. Um, but there was also somebody else who worked on the inner lining here. Let me see. It was there's a Marco Cirio Pedri and Rafael Primitivo.
Beautiful name.
And then Mikel Nitri is the editor and owner at Paulo Press that also helped with it. But mainly they kind of put together the whole cover design and like um,
Mm-mm.
the inner papers and like chose the color of the uh, ribbon that's on the book. There's like a yellow ribbon on it, and this I think it's called I can't remember the name of it, but it's this little like cloth strip that's at the top of the book that's also yellow.
Mm. And
Um,
BB Loaf was involved too.
oh yes, the famous writer B.B. Loaf, the historian of Breadling artifacts.
My
Oh,
favorite phrase I should make mention of is proofing the wad. I think William Carlos Williams would be proud of that.
proofing the
Proofing the
wad.
wad.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because this book was originally like 70 pages longer than it is.
Really?
And I ended up like getting to a point where I was like, "Oh, I have to edit this down otherwise it's not going to get finished in time." And also it was just like there was like a 30-page yeast harvest ritual that took place before it even got into any of the other ingredients, and I was just like, "Okay, this is a little dense to just like open up a book and get this little piece of a story and then all of a sudden, okay, we got a 30-page harvest ritual."
Right.
uh, so I ended up cutting a lot of that stuff down, and as I was doing that, I kind of started adding more of like this lighter quality to it that was a little bit more having fun with it because I had to shorten and cut so many things that had this like serious tone before, and I was like, well, if I can't like embed this like length and seriousness in it, I'm gonna make it a little bit more light and playful. So I honestly think it turned out better for it.
Well, I can imagine it probably felt like more distilled too, in the sense of sometimes when you build or work around a project and then actually remove the stuff, people can still sense that, you know what I mean? Like a hidden world that the artist knows about that isn't being shown.
Totally, and it makes it actually real in that sense too, because there's this like undisclosed depth that is. I mean, it also just yeah, it makes it more interesting if you ever people ask you questions or things like that. You can have answers to the world that are actually concrete as opposed to just being, you know, things you make up for the sake of answering the question, which is fun to do too. But I don't know. Like you're saying with it, my whole thing is I think whatever other people are going to do with it and build into it is going to be part of the most interesting aspect of what will emerge from it. Because I'm really excited to just like share and start archiving people's breadlings that they're sending in, and who knows what that'll turn into someday. But that could be something really fun.
Yeah, I feel like that could be for life. You might be receiving breadlings.
Yeah, or even doing some type of like group artist breadling exhibition where every artist makes
Mm-hmm.
their own breadling.
That's a great idea.
That'd be
Yeah, I
so
think
much
there's
fun.
that kind of joyous quality that I'm trying to celebrate a bit more. Like there's this I'm happy to see that, and I'm sure that it makes your life. I feel like these things tend to come in tandem. That I'm sure your life is more harmonious at the moment than it was during Old Boys. I think that this is just me assuming, but I think those things can be felt.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's also like a big part of just me changing what I've decided that I want to do with art in general. Is you know, I think a lot of artists come out of art school or they don't go to art school and they just come out with this perspective of like wanting to make art that shows the world their worldview and changes the world, and that's kind of like what you're taught to do in the art world. But I think what I'm leaning towards more these days is stuff that kind of allows the world that exists to be more enduring in a positive sense, and to find things that allow you to find a place outside of all the chaos that's happening to center yourself and kind of simplify things and just learn to weather the storm, so to speak, rather than trying to find a way to solve these massive issues with something that I don't know. Ideally, I want to make something that gives people a place to revitalize themselves.
And to create breadlings, which is a form of it's life affirming.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, even
anybody who's
even
baked one know.
unironically, even unironically, like you said,
Yeah,
the act of baking is magical. I eat the Eucharist every week. That's we can get into the not well, it's not a metaphor in certain sense, but I mean, I always found that pretty interesting too. All the strange Christ qualities to being risen and resurrection, and bread is no joke.
oh, totally. I mean, it has. There's also like the John Barleycorn myths, which are these old myths that exist in like England and Ireland that are it's very much a similar type of character, and it's all about how John Barleycorn must die every year so that the people can live, and then he's born again.
I'd
You
never
know,
heard of him.
no, you look him up. He's great. But
He's
yeah, I
got
mean,
to die. Yeah, he
there's so
must
many
die.
crossovers with the that and the Christ qualities of bread and just those kind of rebirth qualities in general and metamorphosis. And yeah, bread is super powerful. I mean, and it's so under acknowledged, I think, as being so because it's such an ordinary thing that's so much a part of our everyday lives, but it truly is magic.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah. Um, I mean, and there's like that whole to me my favorite thing is making work, and my favorite thing about making dough sculpture is the parts that you can't control, like the things that the rising of the dough in the heat of the oven are ultimately going to change the form that you planned on making. And I always think they turn out better for it because they just, it expands and does things that you don't expect. And there's this wonderful thing about pulling it out and having it just look not how you planned, but being really happy about that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think Well, you did ceramics for a while before this, right? That's kind of the lead up, and that has a very similar quality to it, where the glaze isn't even the same color as the way it comes out.
Oh yeah, totally. That kind of,
That
and
drives me
that's even a
nuts.
way more difficulty curve or a way higher learning curve than with dough for sure. I mean, dough can be pretty forgiving to some degree. I've had some pretty horrible. Um, I get. Let's just say there's a lot of breadlings that didn't make it. But
Like they just didn't make it.
yeah, like they exploded almost, or like, you know, like like they would expand to the point where like their face would collapse, and then you're like, oh, you like want it to look cool, and you photograph it, and you're like, this just doesn't look good. Like this just looks like one that just
Interesting.
didn't make it. And then there's the ones that don't make it that look great for not making it, and those are beautiful in that way. But there's a lot of them where you're just kind of like, there's I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. But you know, that's part of the patience of the medium is you get to try it out, and to me, the fun thing is making something without having an expectation of knowing exactly how it's going to turn out and allowing it to take place as it will.
Hmm.
Oh, this has been good. It's nice to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, again, I'm not being paid by Hollow Press, by the way. But I think it's just a very unique and beautiful book. Great colors. Certainly applaud the colors. Very interesting palette.
That was a lot of fun to mess around with. That was something that definitely, because originally I wasn't planning on doing any colors, and I kind of added things as it started coming together and realizing like, oh, this could be a fun way to break up these sections and give them their own feel, you know, as the book is progressing, as opposed to having it all be monochrome, which I think could have looked good too. But um,
No, there's something nice about it.
yeah, I
It's
tried to make
very
them look like those
interesting.
old cookbook photos where they're like ultra saturated and not quite correct. You know, like the
Right, right,
greens
right.
are a little bit too blue. Um, but yeah, I had a lot of fun with that and getting the yolk colors in there, obviously too, because I was like, how can you have so many pictures of eggs without getting that yellowy yolk in there?
Of course. So basically, obviously, people must buy the book and they must bake a breadling.
It's funny because the book actually advises you not to bake one.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say.
It's like we don't want to be responsible for the haunting that'll occur afterwards if you don't do it properly, which
Well,
you know
hopefully, I
that's
mean,
gonna happen.
if you don't get sued, I mean, this country, you can get sued over anything.
Exactly. You know, like what if somebody bakes one of these things and they end up having a psychotic episode and, you know, burn their house down or something like that. And then they're just like, you know, it was the breadling that caused our child to do this.
Well, I think you're culpable technically.
Yeah. So
So
don't
you,
bake
yeah,
breadlings. If you're gonna bake breadlings, do so at your own risk.
yeah. Did you make a waiver?
They're kind of there's a thing in the end that says, you know, the publisher's not responsible for any psychological damages that may be incurred from the baking of a breadling, just in case.
Okay, good.
Because I mean, it does break your heart when they don't work out, but you know that's kind of what the whole thing started as. You know, Twig the rat and passing away, and it kind of honestly the story came from that feeling of like my pet just died and
Hmm.
wanting to buy another pet immediately to like make it not hurt as bad, and then me immediately feeling a great sense of shame that I had treated this like animal companion friend of mine as a commodity almost by wanting to replace this affection so quickly with a new being. And that's kind of what the breadling is about. It's about loneliness and it's about wanting to create companionship in a sense, but like also learning to respect and love the kind of brief, beautiful existences that happen when they do occur, and not to take them for granted.
It's very touching.
Yeah, and this is brought to you by Hallmark. Um, they're actually the
It's
real
almost like
sponsor.
a parenting book. So just to
Honestly, in
quote
some
that.
some weird ways, there is aspects of that in there for sure. It's kind of like embrace the quality of your child as they are. Don't try to
Hmm.
control them. And if your child judges you for your behavior, you should be very, very keen to those observations. Um, because they're a hint, you know.
Well, I hope you make the edible breadling cart if you can afford a donkey. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I will be interviewing Matlock about his a book via Hollow Press. I didn't realize both are via Hollow Press. I'll be doing that next week.
Oh, whoa.
So that's bizarre.
Which one's his? What's the title of his book?
Oh, it's like this collection of books. Let me see. Just so I can plug next week. Haven't been putting these out as regularly. It's called Undead Artifacts, and it's
Oh,
like a
cool.
box set of 15 comics and zines.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's like a collection. So
Sweet.
we're going very hollow this month.
Honestly, I really love what they're doing because it seems like they're kind of just like allowing people to do the books that they want to do through them and being pretty hands off with it. And it seems like they're just kind of exploring tons of different options and seeing, what works for them and what doesn't. And I'm just in this day and age, it's really nice to see a publisher taking those kinds of risks with new artists that don't necessarily have the hugest followings and aren't backed by, big labels and things like that. And it's, yeah, I don't know. To me, I felt like really blessed to just find a group of people that were even going to let me make this thing. Because, like you were saying, like, how do you pitch something like this? How do you put it in an elevator pitch and successfully tell someone what you're trying to do? It's not easy.
Yeah, they should certainly be celebrated for that approach and for recognizing that having the savvy to understand, oh, this man Brad Hock made a very good animated short. Maybe he can make a really cool book. I think a lot of people just don't. They just only see what's right in front of them. So it's nice to hear stories of publishers like that.
Totally. I mean, it's to me, it was just really like, yeah, people tell you stuff your whole life as an artist to just like, follow your intuition and do those things. And they're often the most difficult things to follow because they're super counterintuitive to the way our society is built and organized. And it's, after years and years and years of struggling and trying to like find out ways of making reoccurring income off of pieces and art that's accessible to people and not, $200 to $300 for every single piece is really nice to, just to think about and explore and try to like move things into more of that direction of just overall accessibility and trying different things and seeing what happens when you let people experiment. And, it's not always going to turn out perfect, but I think overall it's going to create a lot of really interesting work and a interesting community of people that are all looking at each other's work as well because it's out there and happening as opposed to just being uh trapped in our heads.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
I know you do some publishing stuff too, so I'm excited to see what you come out with.
I'm just getting into it. Yeah, I'm going to be putting out a kids book soon.
Awesome. I mean, I love the quality. I'm not sure if you're still working with the same Cold Cube press stuff, but like the pieces and quality of the zines and that you've sent me in the past have always been really nice. So I'm excited to see what anything you do. Do you guys
Yeah,
do
also,
are these how do you print these? Are these oh God, what are they called? Risograph?
It depends which book you're referencing. If it was Cold Cube, that would be DCXXXL. That would have been Rezo. But lately and I'll be putting out a book with Balmer, Jesse Balmer,
Oh, nice.
hopefully this year.
Oh,
Um,
can't wait for that.
these are just offset, uh, normal printing. So, that kind of just grows out of like not wanting to have to think about what a publisher wants or doesn't want. And, I'm kind of reticent to start a whole nother thing as I start a bunch of different other stuff, but it'll be low key. We'll just put out friends' books and see what happens.
Totally. I mean, it's all you can do is just put it out and see how people respond to it. And if you make them and they sell out, you can keep printing them. That's the best thing about it. It's a nice way to like give artists a way to put out their work, and as well, just yeah, it's a window into their other art being more accessible and collectible as well, which is always good for people on both ends.
It's just like baking a breadling. You just put it in there, put it out there, see what happens.
Yep. I mean, my whole thing is it's like if you have the inclination to make something and it feels like something you really want to exist in the world, you're likely not the only person that's thinking that. I mean, I imagine there's so many other artists are probably making breadlings and working with breadling like concepts just because it's something I'm thinking about. I imagine other people must be too, and that's kind of I don't know. I think there's something to going with that confidence and trusting your gut that the things you enjoy are going to respond in uh, ways that you don't anticipate out there in the world. Just because, yeah, none of us are that singular in the way that we see things. We're just able to produce something, and if you're able to do that, then that sets you apart from 80% of other people that are wanting to make something but don't necessarily have the trust in their own ability or their gut or their lack of ability in presenting what they can do and just seeing what happens with it.
This is true. I suspect it's a higher percentage than that, though.
It might be
All right, so if people want the book, it's HoloPress.net.
hollowpress.net, hollow-press.net.
They can buy breadlings. They can, of course, bake their own breadlings and send them as DMs to you.
Yeah, and all the pieces that they have up are pieces that were featured in the making of the book or are actual sculptures featured within the book. Um, and yeah, they're a lot of them are really tiny, like beautiful miniature pieces, and then other ones are fairly larger. I just say like make sure you read the descriptions and know what you're getting because they vary in shapes and sizes quite considerably.
And of course, as you noted, if you're going to actually go out of your way to bake one, you need some kind of protection.
Yes, wear oven mitts, wear an apron,
I meant spiritual.
consort your spirits of worship, and don't cross the spirit of the yeastling. That's the main thing. Just make
True.
sure you're good with the spirit of the yeastling, and you shall prevail.
Man, you might need to make some protective charms. Sell
It's
those
actually
things.
not a bad idea.
You could
And
sell it
then
with the book.
yeah, just this is you make sure you're wearing this while you're reading this
Exactly.
text and performing any of these rituals.
All right,
Oh,
let me get 10% on that though. The charms.
oh yeah. I'll factor you in. We can figure something out.
All right, well, enjoy Portland.
Thanks. Enjoy New Jersey. Enjoy the weather over there. I'm sure you're having a nice warm summer like we are. And
Sweltering.
yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always nice getting to
Of
share what I'm
course.
doing with you. And yeah, just appreciate you spreading my strange trinkety world with your community of artists and well, yeah, the community that you live around as well at your theater and everything like that. It's an honor to be a part of it, honestly. I love community projects.
Fungal networks.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Sleep well and
Thank you.
yeah, dream well.
Of course. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Intro song by Dori Bavarsky and Mingji Chen. Also editing assistance by Wasim Mainuddin. Oof. I don't know what we got next, to tell you the truth.